Hello students, I am RG ma'am is with you to start the new chapter today. So your new chapter name is How Do Organisms Reproduce? So this is the first lecture of this chapter. So students, the main thing to understand is that how do organisms reproduce, and the second thing is that is this process necessary in a human being? Actually, this process is not necessary in a human being or another animal and even a plant also. They can survive without reproducing also because it is not considered as an essential life process, but it is necessary because the offsprings that will be produced will continue the genetic hereditary information. The genetic hereditary information will be continued because of the reproduction. So students, the main question arises is that how do organisms reproduce? How do they produce offsprings? So first thing is that there are two modes of reproduction. First is asexual and second one is sexual. Now the thing is that asexual can occur only in lower organisms or even in plants and animals also. So students, I want to make you this thing clear that asexual reproduction can occur inside a plant and even in the lower organisms. But if we talk about higher organisms like us, we have well developed reproductive organs inside our body to produce the new offsprings as gametes are formed inside our body. Okay students, so in this chapter we are going to learn about that how the organisms reproduce and produce offsprings and they look similar to each other. So I want to take an example over here. How did you came on the earth? So you came on earth by the reproductive processes that occurred and you are the offspring of your parent. So this is why you look similar to your parent. Maybe it be your hair color, skin color, eyes, height, health, even sometimes can be seen that the child is just similar to the parent because of the presence of genetic material inside the children. So this genetic material is carried on in the offsprings in the next generation through reproductive processes only. So we are going to talk about the reproductive processes, how it occurs in this chapter. Okay students, so let us look at the reproduction. What is reproduction? So reproduction is the ability of living organism to produce new living organisms similar to them. It is one of the important characteristics of the life. So new similar organisms are reproduced by a single parent. Now there is an example over here. Do dogs reproduce and give birth to cats? No, they reproduce and give birth to dogs only. Similarly, in human beings, if they reproduce, they will give birth to the young ones similar to them. Okay, so this is the definition of reproduction. Now, what is the purpose of reproduction? Why do we need reproduction? Actually, it counts in the life process, but why it is not considered as an essential life process? But sometimes it is also essential because for transferring the genetic material into the next generation, reproduction is necessary to produce the offsprings. So, reproduction is aimed at multiplication and perpetuation, that is the stability of the species. Now, how it will happen? Actually, when a single lion is giving birth to another lion, then this lion will give birth to another lion, and this is how the new generation will come in existence and the genetic material will be continued. The stability of that animal or a human being will be maintained. Okay. Now, in another word, it provides group immortality by replacing the individuals with new ones. Okay. So new ones come into existence and they will be replaced by the old ones. Okay. Animals reproduce in a variety of ways which can be categorized into two categories, that is asexual and sexual reproduction. So as I told you in the starting of the chapter, what is asexual and asexual reproduction? Actually, in asexual reproduction, no gametes are being formed. Okay, a parent body divides to form the offspring. But if we talk about sexual reproduction, then gametes combine and forms the offspring. So we will talk about these type of reproduction in a very brief way in this particular lecture. So students, first let us see the content of today's lecture. So the content of today's lecture is asexual reproduction. Now what does asexual reproduction means? Asexual means in which no sex gametes are included, means only a single parent divides or multiply to form their offspring. Now how it will happen, we will study in this particular lecture. Okay students, so let us start with the asexual reproduction. Okay, so first thing I want to make you this thing clear, that asexual reproduction occurs in many ways. Okay, so first type of asexual reproduction is fission. So we are going to talk about first type of sexual reproduction. So fission, it is the simplest form of reproduction in which unicellular organism either divides into two or more individual. Now let me make you this thing clear, that a unicellular means a single celled organism divide to produce two or more individuals. Now it is further divided into two types. Okay, so first if we talk about is the binary fission. Okay, now what will happen, a single celled body that is unicellular, we can take the example of amoeba and paramecium. They are unicellular organisms. Now what they will do, they will divide by cytokinesis. Cytokinesis means they are just dividing their cytoplasm, and even the nucleus will get divided, and then a new body or a new organism will take birth. Okay, so first we will understand that how binary fission takes place. Okay, so it is a type of reproduction in which nuclear division is followed by appearance of constriction in the cell membrane, which gradually deepens inward and divides the cytoplasm into two parts, each with one nucleus. Finally, two daughter cells are formed. Now what will happen students, you can see that if we are going to take the example of amoeba here, so what will happen, amoeba has a body like this. Okay, this is the body of amoeba. Now what will happen, this body will get divided. So first the nucleus will divide, then the cytoplasm will divide, and after dividing the two daughter cells will be formed. So the new cells or the offspring that are produced are known as what, the daughter cells. Okay, and this the parent cell which is dividing and forming the new cells. Okay students, so now next we are going to see the definition over here. So production of offsprings by a single parent without the formation and fusion of gametes is called as asexual reproduction. So we are just revising the asexual reproduction which we read there. So we learned about that how the binary fission takes place. So we will continue that topic again in the particular slide. Now it is more primitive type of reproduction. It ensures rapid increase in the number. So how the rapid increase in the number will take place, because the organism is itself getting divided to produce the offsprings. Okay, now if we talk about occurrence, then asexual reproduction occurs in protozoans and some animals such as sponges, coelentrates and certain worms. So you can see that the lower organisms are carrying on the asexual reproduction. Okay students, now if we talk about the types of asexual reproduction, then asexual reproduction takes place in the following principal ways. So there are many ways through which the asexual reproduction takes place. So first, asexual reproduction takes place through fission. Okay, second through budding, third through fragmentation, in which the body get divided into small fragments. Okay, next if we talk about is spore formation. So a single spore is produced by the body and then it gets multiplied. Okay, next, regeneration. If we talk about flatworm, if we cut the body part of flatworm and put it into the favorable conditions, then the body parts will give rise to the complete body. So this is how the regeneration will take place. This also occurs in starfish as well. Okay, next is vegetative propagation. It occurs inside plants like tubers of the potato. Even we can see the ginger, the underground stem getting rooted up. Okay, now students, see this diagram over here. This is the diagram of binary fission that is occurring in amoeba. So I have drawn there the diagram of the binary fission. So let us just revise this thing. So you can see here, this is the parent amoeba and this is the nucleus of parent amoeba. Now what will happen? The elongation of the nucleus will take place and development of the groove will take place. The groove will be deepened and it will develop here. Now what will happen here, students? The division of the nucleus as well as the cytoplasm will take place over here. Okay, so nucleus will also get divided and cytoplasm will also get separated for producing the new daughter cells. And lastly, the two daughter cells will be produced from a single parent amoeba. So this is how the binary fission takes place inside amoeba. Okay, students. Now students, let us see the binary fission that occurs inside amoeba. So you can see here the two more organisms which I have put here. First is the euglena and second one is the paramecium. Okay, the protozoan. Okay, now we will see that how the binary fission occurs inside three of the organisms. So if you see amoeba, so you can see here, this is the cytoplasmic content of amoeba and this is the nucleus. Now what will happen? The nucleus extension will take place and this will get divided and forming the new amoeba, that is the daughter cells. Okay, so this is how the binary fission takes place inside it. Okay, now we are going to talk about the second type of organism. This is the paramecium, in which the transverse binary fission will take place. The body is divided transversely. So you can see the division over here. Last one is the protozoan. So if we talk about protozoan, so in this you can see here that longitudinal division will take place and the body will be divided longitudinally, and because of this the two new daughter cells will be produced. So this is how the binary fission takes place inside the body of these organisms. Now students, we are going to talk about the second type of fission. Firstly, we talked about binary fission. Now this is the second type of fission, which is known as what? Multiple fission. So students, now you can see here, sometimes the nucleus divides several times into many daughter nuclei. Okay, so if a single nucleus is getting divided several times, so it forms many nuclei, okay, at a particular time. Now the daughter nuclei arrange at periphery of the parent cell and a bit of cytoplasm around each daughter nuclei is present. Okay, so what will happen? These nuclei will get divided and they will arrange in the periphery of the particular organism. Okay, now next, nucleus develops an outer membrane. Finally, the multinucleated body divides into many daughter cells. Okay, so this nucleus get divided and develops an outer membrane even, and finally the multinucleated body divides into many daughter cells. So you can see here that a single nucleus is getting multiplied, forming many nuclei, and these many nuclei forming many new organisms from that. Okay, so this is how the multiple fission takes place. Multiple means many. Okay, students, now example, Plasmodium. So in Plasmodium is a malarial parasite. It produces through sporozoites inside our liver. So you have learned about this thing in 9th class as well, that how malaria takes place inside a human body. So Plasmodium is the basic protozoan because of which the disease takes place. It is a malarial parasite. So please remember the name. Okay, it is a malarial parasite. Okay, now this is a diagram to show that how multiple fission in Plasmodium takes place. Now you can see here, students, there is a single nucleus. Okay, this is known as what? Schizon. Okay, this is the cytoplasm part which is known as cyzont, and this is a single nucleus. Now what will happen? This nucleus will get divided, producing many nuclei which are known as what? Daughter nuclei. Now these daughter nuclei will get arranged at the periphery. Okay, they will get arranged at the periphery. Okay, now after getting arranged at the periphery, they will come out through the plasma membrane. Okay, so they are getting separated from the plasma membrane and they are releasing out in the external environment, which are also known as merozoites. So this is how the multiple fission in the plasmodium takes place. Okay, students. Now, the next type of asexual reproduction is known as what? Budding. So what is budding? Let us see. Formation of a daughter individual from small projection, which is known as bud, arising at the parent body, is known as what? Budding. So what happens in this case, students? Parent cell do not get divided. Parent cell just develop a daughter cell, or we can say a new offspring on its body, and then after it is formed completely, then it gets separated from that parent body. Okay, so budding is also of two types. So how many types? Two types. So first is exogenous budding. So what is exogenous budding? Let us see. It is known as what? External budding. In this, bud arises from the surface of parent body. Example, hydra and yeast. So you have also observed this thing, that in hydra what happens? The bud arises from the body and after some time it gets separated off and form a new individual. Okay. Now, second type of budding is known as what? Exogenous budding. So, internal budding. In this, bud arises inside or within the parent body. Example, sponges. So, what happens in sponges? Internal budding takes place. The internal cells get formed and what happens? A new individual is formed inside the body. So, this is how the exogenous budding and endogenous budding takes place. So, you can see here, students, how the budding in the hydra takes place. So, this is a very beautiful and clear diagram to understand that how budding in hydra takes place. So, first you can see here, this is the parent hydra. Okay. Now, this is a parent hydra. It has produced a small bud which can be seen over here. This is a small bud. Now, what will happen? This is a developing bud. Okay. So, it is getting developed on the body of the hydra. Now, the new bud will be produced. Okay. This will be produced completely. Now, after completion, what will happen? It will get detached off from the body. So, it is getting detached off from the body and the new hydra will be produced. Okay, students. So, this is how the budding takes place inside hydra. Okay. Now, the third type of asexual reproduction is known as what? Fragmentation. Okay. Now, students, as it is the third type of asexual reproduction, so let us see that what does a fragmentation mean. So, it is a type of reproduction or the regeneration ability of the organism to replace their lost part. Okay. So, what will happen? The lost part will be replaced. Okay. So, in this process, an entire new organism can grow from certain pieces or cells of the parent organism. So, how the fragmentation will take place? Actually, fragmentation means we are just dividing it. Okay. So, you can see that if we are taking a piece of a paper, okay, and we are cutting it from here. So, it is getting divided into three parts. You can see this thing. So, this is known as what? Fragmentation. We are just dividing a single organism into many fragments. Okay, students. Now, its example is what? Spirogyra. Okay. Now, you can see here, this is a very beautiful and clear diagram to understand that how fragmentation takes place. So, you can see here in Spirogyra, students, that this is the whole body of the Spirogyra. Now, what it is doing? It is getting fragmented. Okay, it is dividing from this part. Okay, now it is creating the fragments of itself and these fragments will give rise to the new offspring. Okay, so this is the third type of asexual reproduction. Now, we are moving towards the next type of reproduction, which is known as what? The spore formation. Okay, so what a spore formation mean? So, it is a process of reproduction most commonly found in fungi and some cocci and bacillus bacteria. In this process, a structure is formed called a sporangium. In this structure, nucleus divides several times, and each nucleus with a little trace of cytoplasm forms a spore. Now, let us understand this thing, that how does it happen. So, we are just repeating the line so that you do not get confused. In this process, what happens, students, actually it happens mainly in fungi, in cocci, and even in the bacillus bacteria. Okay, now it is in this process a structure is formed which is known as what? Sporangium. Okay, it is a rounded, or we can say a circular structure which is known as what? Sporangium. Now, in this structure, nucleus divides several times. Okay, remember, it divides several times. Okay, many times, and each nucleus with little trace of cytoplasm form the spore. So, the number of the nucleus will be forming the number of the spores. Okay, students. Now, these spores are then liberated out and develop into a new hyphae. Now, what is hyphae? Actually, a new organism will be produced by the help of the spores. Okay. For example, rhizopus. So, this is the good example of spore formation. Okay. So, rhizopus. So, you can see here that this is a diagram to show you the reproduction through spore formation in the fungus. So, how the spore formation in the fungus will take place? So, firstly, the sporangium will be formed by the division of the nucleus, as I told you. So, this is the sporangium in the first step. Now, second will be the spore formation. So, these are the spores which are released in the environment. Okay. Now, third part is the stolon. So, this is the part which is known as what? Stolon. And last one is the rhizoids. Okay. So, these are the root-like structures which are known as what? Rhizoids. And these rhizoids usually contain the food amount. Okay, students. So, this is how the reproduction through spore formation takes place inside fungus. Okay. Now, you have seen also the bread molds that occur in your home, or even the places which are very prone to moisture. So, you can see that the fungus get develops. Even in the jars of pickles, you have seen that fungus get developed at the corners of the jar. So, why does this happen? Because of the presence of moisture. Actually, they are very favorable towards moisture. So, what happens? The nucleus get divided, it forms a sporangium, and then these spores are being transformed and they form the hyphae, and they keep on dividing, and they get nutrition from that food and destroy the food on which they get developed. For a very good example, bread mold. Okay. Now, the fifth type of asexual reproduction is known as what? Regeneration. Okay, this is the fifth type of asexual reproduction. Now, let us see what is regeneration. Ability to make up the lost part is called regeneration, as in planaria and hydra. Okay, so in planaria and hydra, what happens if a single part of a body is lost? The new part will get developed after a particular interval of time. So, this ability of a particular organism is known as what? Regeneration. Now, I want to give a very good example over here. You have seen that starfish has the conicular structures. Now, what happens if a single part is damaged? After some time, the new parts will get developed. So, this is how the regeneration will take place. Okay, students. So, if we see here that regeneration in planaria, so this is a picture over here to see the regeneration in planaria. Now, what will happen? We are just seeing this thing. What will happen? Actually, you can see this is a planaria. Okay. Now, if the body parts, means if it is losing its eyes or the back portion also even. So, what will happen? The new body will get developed after a certain time. Okay. After certain time, the whole body even will get developed. Okay. So, this is how the regeneration in planaria takes place. Okay. Now, students, we are going to see the basic differences between the fragmentation and the regeneration. So, let us see the differences. First is Limited to invertebrates. Okay, limited to invertebrates means it occurs usually in the lower organisms. If we talk about regeneration, present in both vertebrates as well as invertebrates. Now, have you seen that the lizard, okay, if lizard tail gets detached from the body for any reason, so after some time the new tail will get developed because of the process of regeneration. So regeneration can be seen in invertebrates as well as vertebrates. Okay. Now second, a method of reproduction. So it is a method of reproduction. Now it is reproductive method as well as method to regenerate lost body parts. So lost body parts can be come up by the process of regeneration. Third point, fragmented part produces new organism. So new organisms can be produced, as I told you, in fragmentation. If not for reproduction, separated part cannot grow into a new organism. Okay, so new organism cannot be formed. Okay, if regeneration cannot take place, actually in regeneration the new organism does not form, only the part that has been lost is regenerated. Okay, next fourth point, more common in plants, non-vascular. Okay, so it is more common in those plants which are non-vascular, means they do not have a well-developed vascular system consisting of xylem and phloem. Okay, now more common in animals. So this regeneration ability is common in animals like in lizards, in starfish, planaria, okay, in hydra. Now, fifth point, found in only certain organisms. So they are rarely found, fragmentation, as I told you. If we talk about regeneration, their various forms can be seen in all the animals living on the earth. So regeneration can be seen in many animals which are living on the earth. Okay, students. Now, students, let us see the sixth type of asexual reproduction. So this sixth type of asexual reproduction is known as what? The vegetative propagation. So what is vegetative propagation, students? Let us see. This is a type of reproduction found in higher plants in which a new plant is formed from vegetative part of the plant, such as root, stems or leaves. For example, in potato, bryophyllum, sweet potato, even ginger, in onion, and many of the plants we can see the vegetative reproduction. So what happens, students? A part of the plant gives rise to the new plant. Okay, so this is how the vegetative reproduction takes place. Okay, now vegetative propagation occurs through leaf in the bryophyllum. If we talk about bryophyllum, then the leaves which are taking birth on the another leaf gets detached off and a new plant is formed. Okay, next you can see here that vegetative propagation occurs by two methods. Okay, so if we talk about vegetative propagation, then it occurs by artificial method also, and even it occurs by natural method also. Okay, so if we talk about artificial, so first one is leaf, second one is stem, third one is root, and if we talk about the natural vegetative propagation, then it occurs through cutting, secondly it occurs through grafting, and thirdly it occurs through layering. Okay, and then there are types of layering as well. So we are going to talk about all this thing in this particular lecture. Okay, so in the upcoming slides as well, we are going to see that how vegetative reproduction takes place. Okay, now students, we are going to see that how artificial vegetative propagation takes place. So, as we have learned about various methods through how artificial vegetative propagation take place. So, first one is the cutting method. Okay. Now, what will happen in cutting method, students? This is the very common method for vegetative propagation practiced by the gardeners. Actually, this is really very common method. Some people do this method at their homes also, for growing new plants from the stem part of the plant. You have seen that when a gardener come to your home, they just cut the stem part of the rose plant and get it planted in the soil, and after some time a new plant will get developed from that stem part. So this is how the cutting method is used by the gardeners for the vegetative propagation. propagation. Okay, students. Now, here it is the process in which a vegetative portion from the plant is taken and is rooted in the soil to form a new plant. So, as I told you that we are taking a vegetative portion of the plant. Okay, so vegetative portion of the plant is mainly the stem which we take, and what we do, we just dug it in the soil. Okay, we cover it with the layer of the soil, and then after some time when we are providing it favorable conditions, then a new plant arises. So it can occur in grapes as well and in sugarcane. So these are the examples of the plants in which the cutting method of vegetative propagation is usually used by the gardeners. Okay, now the second method is known as what? Layering. Okay, what is layering? Let us see. In this process, the development of the adventitious roots is induced on the stem before it gets detached from the parent plant. Example, mango and roses. So what happens in this process? A part of the plant is taken and then it is covered by the soil. Okay, and after some time the adventitious roots will be developed in that part which has been covered by the soil, and then they become a new plant. So this type of method is usually used in the plants like mango and even roses. Okay, so in roses, cutting method and even layering method, both the methods are used for growing the new plant. Okay, students. Now here you can see this is the pictorial representation of layering. So we will firstly read it and then we will understand it. Okay, so forming of the roots when stem comes in contact with the ground, which further can be grow into an independent plant. So what happens? You can see here that a stem part is bent downwards towards the soil. Now what happens when it is covered by the soil? It develops the roots which are known as what? The adventitious roots. Okay, now you can see this whole stem is being developing into a new plant. Okay, so it is useful in developing fruit or cards in horticulture. Okay, now students, you can see here that in orchards, or you can say if we are performing the horticulture, okay, we are doing the fruit production mainly. Then what happens? We use the layering as an artificial vegetative propagation method to propagate the new plants. Okay, so you can see here that a single stem or a branch is getting dug in the soil, and after some time a new plant is getting developed from it. Okay, so now we have to understand that there are two types of layering. Okay, so two types of layering are, first one is mound layering and second one is aerial layering. Okay, so we are going to deep study about the two types of layering, mound layering and aerial layering. So if we talk about mound layering, so what is mound layering? In this process of layering, the lower stem branch of the plant is used. So we are just using the part of the plant which is very lower. Okay, the lower stem, you can say. Okay, now leaves are removed from this stem. So all the leaves are being detached off from this stem part of the plant. Okay, now then it is bent close to the ground, packed and covered with the moist soil in such a way that its growing tip remains above the soil surface. Now what is happening, students? We are just taking the lower branch or lower stem part of the plant. We are putting it under the moist soil. Okay, now after some time what will happen? The adventitious roots will get developed. Okay, because of the presence of moist soil and the favorable environment. Okay, and the growing tip will remain on the upward side of the soil. Okay, now this packed down branch is known as a layer. So we are just using the lower part of the plant, the lower branch of the plant, and this lower branch of the plant which we are using is known as what? A layer. Okay, after a few days the covered portion of the stem develops root. Okay, so adventitious roots arises because of the favorable conditions. This stem is then detached from the parent plant and is grown separately into a new individual. So a new individual is being produced by such type of vegetative propagation. Okay, so this occurs usually in jasmine. Okay, jasmine is a very beautiful plant which is having very colorful and fragrant flowers. So this method is usually used in this plant. Okay, jasmine. Now second type of layering is known as what? Air layering. So let us study about air layering, what it happens. So it is adopted in those plants where stem cannot be bent to the ground. Okay, so stem where cannot be bent in the ground, it is used in those plants. Okay, now in this process the stem is girdled. Example, ring of the bark is removed. Okay, so girdling means what we are doing, we are just removing the rings of the bark part, that is the outermost part of the branch. Then it is covered with moist moss or cotton and wrapped with polythene sheet to preserve the moisture. And after removing the bark plant part, what we are doing, we are just covering it with the polythene, or we are just covering it with the moist cotton. Next, after few weeks, adventitious roots develop from the injured part. So the plant part from where the bark has been removed, and we have put the moist cotton or polythene over there to maintain the moisture environment. After some time, the roots will get developed from that part, okay, where the bark is being removed. The branch along with root is then separated from the parent plant and planted to grow into a new plant. Example, orange and pomegranate. So you can see here that orange and pomegranate are the two examples of air layering in which the stem part is not dug inside the soil. What we do, we just remove the bark plant part and then they are covered with the polythene or the moist cotton, and after some time the roots will get developed and that part of the plant will get dug in the soil and a new plant will get developed. So this is how the air layering is possible. So we have learned about two types of layering here. First is mound layering, okay, and second one is air layering. Now, so this is a pictorial representation to show the air layering. So you can see here that in this part, this is the branch part, okay, and in this branch part, the bark of the plant part is being removed. So you can see here, okay. Now what is happening, we are just covering with the moist soil and then after it we will put the polythene over it. After some time what we will see, that some roots has been developed from this part of the plant. Okay, so this is showing the air layering. Okay, now we are going to study about the third type of vegetative propagation. So it is known as what? Grafting. Okay, till now we have learned about what? We have learned about the cutting procedure and even the layering. But the last one is known as what? Grafting, and it is very important and most commonly used procedure. So what is grafting, students? The process of joining together of two different plants in such a manner that they live as one plant is known as what? Grafting. Now what happens, students? What we do, we put the stem part of the plant of another plant to the similar plant. Now you are getting confused from this language, so let me make you understood in a very simplified form. What we do, okay, I am having a stem which is labeled as A. Okay, now I am having another stem which is labeled as stem B. Now what I am doing, students, I am just putting the stem A over stem B. Okay, this is stem A and this is B, and I will tie a knot over here. Okay, after tying the knot over here, I will wait for 1 week. After 1 week, what I will see, that these two stems has been joined by the tissues, by developing the tissues. Okay, they have been joined and grown up into a new plant. So this is a very common method which is used as a vegetative method of propagation. Okay, now out of the two plants, one is rooted in the soil and is known as the stalk. So if you see here that if we are considering B stem, then I am just rooting it into the soil. So this part will be known as what? Stalk part. Okay, which is rooted inside the soil. Okay, now next, the other part consists of a small shoot bearing one or more bud. It is known as what? scion or scion, you can say it. Okay, so the part which is above the ground, which is known as what? Scion or scion, you can see here. Okay, so it is the main role of stalk and scion through which a new plant is getting developed. Their union is carried out in such a way that their cambium must overlap each other. Okay, so we are just attaching the two stems in such a way that their cambium is being overlapped with each other. And what will happen after the development of the new meristematic tissues inside the vascular cambium? The tissues will get developed, and after that the two stems will get joined together. Okay, this is usually preferred in the plants like mango and roses. Okay, so you can see here that it is preferred in these type of plants. Okay, now did you understood how grafting takes place? Now this is the pictorial representation which I have shown you through the stem part A and B part. Now you will see here, students, that how does it happens. Okay, now I am taking a freshly potted plant, and this lower portion of the plant is known as what? Stalk. Now I am putting the above stem part of the plant from the another plant, okay, to join it. So this part is known as what? Scion or scion. Now after some time, when I am tying the note and I am just waiting for 1 to 2 weeks, you will see here that these parts have been joined together by the development of new tissues. So this grafting procedure is very common. Nowadays also it is very common. Why? Because of the development of new characteristics inside a particular plant, and even to provide the particular nutrition to the plant. Okay, now as you see here that if I am taking a plant, okay, and it is not having so much of qualities which I want, then what I will do, I will take the branch of the another plant which is rich in qualities, and then I will get attached it of both of the two. Now after some time I will see that the leaves which are formed are having the colors of both of the plant, means they are having the characteristics of both of the plant. So this is how this is very common. Now students, this is a very small video through which we will revise each and everything about artificial vegetative propagation which we have read till now. Okay, the methods through which the artificial vegetative propagation takes place. So it takes place through layering, through cutting, through grafting, and also we are going to tell you about the tissue culture. What is tissue culture? Okay, so these are the common methods through which the vegetative propagation takes place. So first one is layering. In layering, what we do? We just do it by two methods, mound layering and air layering. Now what we do? We just put the branch beneath the soil, and after you see that it is growing up, and after growing up it develops the adventitious roots over it. Now after developing the adventitious roots, you can see that a new plant is getting developed. We will cut the section of this plant and we will plant this part in the new soil for getting developed into a particular whole plant. So this is how the layering takes place. It takes place usually in jasmine. Okay, and next is the black raspberry. So it is most common in both of these type of plants. Now second method of artificial vegetative propagation is known as what? Cutting. Now what we will do in cutting, you can see here this is a well green plotted plant in which we cut the section of the plant and remove the leaf part of the plant from that branch. Now this branch will get planted in the moist soil. After some days, what you will see that this branch is getting developed and the new leaves and even roots are getting developed through this branch. So this is how the cutting takes place and a new plant getting developed. Okay students, now students, we are going to learn about the micro propagation. Till now we have read about vegetative propagation. Now it's the time to learn about micro propagation. So it has now become possible due to recent techniques to produce a large number of plantlets from a small piece of tissue taken from the shoot, tip or other suitable plant parts. So what we are doing, we are taking just the shoot, tip or other plants of the part that are vegetative and we are just planting it inside the moist soil. This method of propagation is known as what? Micro propagation. Okay. Now it involves the process of tissue culture, example orchids, ornamental plants as well. Okay, so orchids or ornamental plants are usually used through this micropropagation technique. Okay, students. Now, this is the method through which the micropropagation take place. So, we will understand it step by step that how it takes place. So, first step is tissue sample scraped from the parent plant. So, we just scrap the tissue from the parent plant. After this, what will happen? Tissue sample placed in agar growth medium containing nutrients and auxins. So, auxin is a great hormone of the plant which is useful for the cell elongation, cell division and the growth of the shoot and the root tip of the plant. Okay, so this is the solution in which agar we are taking and even the auxin we are taking and putting the tissue of that sample inside it. Now after this, what will happen? Sample develop into the tiny plantlets. So tiny plantlets will get developed out of the sample and these plantlets will get planted into the compost and then these planted will give rise to the new plant. So this is how the micropropagation take place, and even this type of propagation is known as what? Tissue culture, in which we are taking a single tissue of the plant and from that tissue we are developing a whole plant. Okay, so this method is also known as tissue culture. Okay, in this technique the genes are even preserved. Okay, now we are going to understand that what is parthenocarpy. Okay, so naturally or artificially induced production of fruits without fertilization resulting in a seedless fruit. Okay, so what we are doing, we are just making the fruits artificially without the fertilization procedure, and these type of fruits which are developed artificially without fertilization are known as what? Parthenocarpic fruits, or we can say the seedless fruits. Now it is monoparental, that is fusion of the gametes does not occur. Only a single parent give rise to the new individual. So we are using only a single parent. We do not need both parent, that is the male and the female gamete, for fusion or developing the zygote. Okay. Now significance of asexual reproduction. So we are on the end of this lecture. So we have to understand that what is the significance of asexual reproduction, students. So first point, it brings about multiplication of the species only. So it actually what is happening, the genetic information is getting transferred, but there is no role of male and female gamete. Okay, only a single parent cell is getting divided into multiple. Next, it does not play a role in evolution. No variation is introduced into the new individual formed by it. So what is happening actually, the parent is giving birth to the daughter cell, but what is this, students? The genetic information remains the same. It is not changing. Why? Because there are no different genes to perform. Okay, a parent is having genes that are carried by their offsprings, and then these offsprings will give birth to another offsprings after becoming matured. So this is how the genetic information is being transferred, but it is not getting variated. Okay, no mutations are being seen in the generations. Now this is the pictorial representation of parthenocarpy. So parthenocarpy, actually it literally means a virgin fruit in natural and artificial induced production of fruit without fertilization of the ovule, and this fruit is therefore known as seedless. So we have seen that parthenocarpic fruits are very common in today's market. Why? Because of the increasing population, how can we grow such amount of fruit? So parthenocarpy is really common nowadays. Okay, parthenogenesis refers to production of egg cells without fertilization. So no fertilization takes place. Okay, and the fruit is being developed, but it will be without seeds, or you can say the pseudo embryo will be produced. Okay, students. So now students, this is the assignment for you all. This is the assignment number 1, in which the exercises number 1, exercise number 2 and even exercise number 3 are being mentioned over here. So please complete the homework. This is a very small homework for you all. Okay, students. So we have learned about the mode of sexual reproduction, that is the asexual reproduction, in this particular lecture, and how The lower organisms perform asexual reproduction like the amoeba, paramecium, protozoans, and the plant performs the vegetative propagation. Now in the next lecture, we will learn that how the plants do the sexual reproduction. Okay students? So please give me the permission to leave. Thank you.